Okay, let's start again. First, I would like to ask if you actually like our piano player. If so, I think you should give him a hand. It was a surprise for me as well, so I think it's wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you for the show so far. And now we will actually try to look a little more into the course in itself and see how can we actually make some links. And as you probably have found out now, it's all about asking the right questions. It's not only in the TEMO course, but in your life. If you want to have success, you're supposed to be able to ask the right questions. Think about that. It's not always having the answers, it's actually asking the right questions. So how could you ask the right questions in the TEMO course? You should look at your Java TEMO toolbox. If we can switch, yes. This is a toolbox, yes. So now when you go back this afternoon and make your first case analysis, and you're going to take all the good advice of our guest, you should ask yourself, what questions could we ask? And then you look into the toolbox and you go through, yes? All of these tools can be used in order to find out what's actually the key problem here and who might be the key problem owner. So this is a little trick for you, asking the right questions, and in order to find out what to ask, you should look into your toolbox. And in fact, you could use the entire toolbox for all cases in order to find out what tools are actually the most interesting here. That's what I had to say for now. And now it's you, Sarah.
Yeah, it is, because I think that Matthias was giving you a very, very useful presentation on how to work with case analysis and cases in general, and I think you had a questions on how is this relevant to engineers in a more general context. And actually, his small assignment with the puzzles actually saying that every problems are unstructured. So I think that is one thing that you should care about, is that many of the problems that you're going to meet, not only here as students, but also later on in your life as engineers, are going to be unstructured. It will not be clear from the beginning what is actually the problem here and what is going to be the solution. So in that sense, doing case analysis is a very important method and process approach for solving the problems that you're going to face. And then I think he also made another important point that you can use already today, because of course you have had the whole TEMO toolbox, you haven't been through the whole curriculum yet, and you don't know all the theories that we're going to present to you. So clearly you will get a little frustrated. We know this afternoon it's going to be the first time that you're working with the cases, what to do actually here. But think about case analysis, as Matthias was saying, is an iterative process. You will have to go back to the problem that you identified today in the first case and refine it and see if it's still the actual problem that you're going to work with, the one that you have identified today. Then another point that he was making regarding this defining of the problem is that this is a constant process that you return to. Make sure, is this still, with the knowledge that I have now, the right problem, or the real problem? Is this the real problem owner that I have identified? And when you come to the last time before the exam, the last Wednesday before the exam, and you're going to work on all 4 cases, then you will have a lot more knowledge than you have today. And then you will go back and see if it's still the right problem that you have identified, and you can refine your analysis. So keep that in mind when you sit there today and say, what are we actually going to do? That's part of the process of learning here. Then another point is on the hypothesis development. Think about this as a way of getting an overview of the case that you're working with. What is actually the possible problems, the possible solutions, the possible roads that we can take in this case, and what arguments can we actually provide for taking the different cases, and then you choose one in the end for saying this is then going to be my suggestion for a solution, and communicate it along the way, as Matthias also was saying, together with your teammates when you have the opportunity of doing presentations in the end of the classes today. Use that opportunity. And I think that was one of my last points from what Matthias was saying. Then we have some practical things to say regarding the case this afternoon. It's going to be on the taste of wine, and I hope you have all read it. For those of you who weren't here last time and are still not in a group, you go to building 450 in the afternoon. You go to room 006B, and there will be 2 friendly TAs taking care of you and making sure that you get into a group. And yes?
And then perhaps we could ask if they have any questions.
Yes, that would be a very good idea.
Any questions for us? Yes. Nice.
This one down here.
Are we supposed to come up with solutions or just like identify the problem?
Can I answer first?
You can do that
You
first.
know,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of experience to come up with a good solution, yes? You don't have that much experience yet, okay? What you can do and what we can learn you at the university is to make a good you have a case analysis. So I think you should focus very much on that part. And then if you have actually solved the problem and made some causal explanations, you will actually see that some of the solutions will actually pop up themselves. So focus very much on making the case analysis, yes? That's what we're going to look into also at the exam.
So what Søren is saying, look for the problem, look for the causes for the problem, but think about what could be the solution, but don't put most emphasis on that part. It's mainly on the causal
You know, it's
analysis.
and it's actually an engineering trap. I think we can say that because we're also
We're
engineers.
both engineers.
That you are so focused on actually making a solution that you don't really always look into all the causal explanations. Yes, and that's what we're trying to train you here. Yes, do not
Jump.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just jump into solutions.
Yeah.
Okay. More questions? Come on, one more question. Huh? Yes?
I have been wondering what our angle on the case is. How do we get into it? Are we hired by anyone? Because it seems like these 2 engineers, the sales engineer and the development engineer, they're having a little secret club that no one knows about. So how do we get into it?
It's a good question. So, Jave, thank you very much. You're supposed to look at it from more than one perspective, yes? So you could look at it as the engineer, you could look at it as a consultant, or you could look at it as the CEO or as the innovation manager. And if you do all 4, you will have much more interesting insights about this problem, and you will be able to make a good case analysis. So I think, and it's very important, you should have more than one perspective on a case, always.
And I would say that's a very good preparation also for if we're talking about the exam in the end, that when we're challenging you on how could this problem look from another perspective, then if you have already been through this sort of type of process, you will be very well prepared, I would say. Yeah.
One more question here. Jakob, please.
There are a lot of different tools in the toolbox. Some of them might not be applicable. Should we give reason to why they're not applicable, or should we just say we don't use this and just use other ones like SWOT or STAR method?
I think you should, from the beginning, start saying by which one would be relevant. And then some of them might not be relevant at all, and some of them could be discussed whether or not they're relevant. So give that a thought. And if you have time, I assume that you're talking about the exam situation, if you should actually
Or just in
argue
general?
Yeah, or in general. I would say be prepared for the question, but I don't think that you should go in at first from all that you have been not choosing to include in an analysis. Focus on what you have chosen to include.
And I would like to add, you would also actually be more aware and clever if you can answer the question, why is it not relevant? Yes? There is a lot of knowledge. Yes?
Indeed.
Indeed. More questions? Or over there, please, Jakob.
I would like to ask a question that's in the lines of the perspective question that the other guy asked before. So when we present these cases to you, for example, at the exams,
For example.
and you say that you can use a different perspective as of presenting this case, would that be the first thing that we are to define what our perspective is? I mean, in the taste of wine case, if I were to present that case to you, let's say the first thing I would say would be, I would like to present this case as if I were one of the two engineers who had an idea.
Yeah, that could be one way of doing it. Saying I take this point of departure, you could say, for solving the case.
And of course, it would be nice to say that from the start, yes. And one question might then be, in the end, what if you look at this case from another perspective? Yes. So you have to train all. You have to train all of the perspectives. But you can choose one, of course. We're also going to talk a lot more about the oral exam later, so you don't have to worry about that.
No.
We have a briefing at week 6. But still, you are free to ask questions now. Any more questions? Or are you just looking forward to have a break? You're going to have a long break. Then we have Per.
On the question of perspectives which you are raising, it is a good idea to identify who's actually your problem owner. If you take one perspective, the two engineers in the taste of wine case might be the problem owners. It could also be the guy responsible for innovation in the company who was the problem owner. But you could also look at from the top management perspective, what's actually the consequences of moving into a new market. These guys who are having that as a problem owner has to be addressed. So talking about perspectives, as Søren does, actually implies that you look into who owns this problem and who has to deal with the problem. That could be a way of handling this perspective issue.
Yes, that was exactly my case. It's just that because these cases are of course not very elaborative, they're kind of squares because it is a case for teaching. But that was my point, that if you want to find a problem owner, you need to take the perspective into account. If you were to be the other design manager who was asked if it was possible at all to change from going from milk to wine, you might not even have a problem at all. He would just discard it and not even think about it. That was my point. You need to have a perspective to find a problem owner first. Do you understand what I'm saying?
And you should also be aware of it's actually never only a question about if it's actually feasible from an engineering point of view. You have a lot of other stuff to consider. Yes, organization, culture, people, and of course the market. Who are your customers and so forth. So it's not only about can it actually be done from an engineering point of view. That's actually the least sometimes. Yes. And you would also be surprised, you were talking about the cases, yes, they are quite square, but you would be surprised how many angles you can find on them. We have been working with these cases for how many years? 5 years?
Yeah.
And we still find new angles. Yes? So it's all about, it's all up to you and your imagination.
And I think take the opportunity in the next 4 weeks when you're working with the cases, because in the sense that they are fictive and they are a little squared, as you were saying as well, it is that you can hear practice on the method, because when you come to the real life challenge after the oral exam, problems will be much more messy and it will be much more difficult to actually see what is the problem here and what is the path that we're going to take. So practice a lot now. Yeah, we have one question here.
During the case analysis, we might go into problems where we say, all right, we would like to have some more facts. Is it an economical problem that they won't go into the wine industry? So should we say this as hypothesis, so we say, all right, we assume there is enough money, or how should we present that?
You will have some tools now and for the next weeks where you also can make some analysis about the external factors, yes? And if you're going to change your industry, then you should make an industry analysis of the new industry to see if you can find some information you need to know. So we expect that from you. If you, for instance, are going to suggest, yes, we're going into the wine industry, you should look at the wine industry and see, is that the same as being in the industry we are now? No, it is not. So you have to understand that, yes? So you have to look at the external factors as well. It's not only internal analysis, it's also about all the external factors you have to consider. But
And
it's going to be fun, so I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah. And of course, you can make assumptions around what would actually be the requirements for this market, because you don't have full information, of course, about these things, and you will. It's not meant in this part of the course that you should seek a lot of additional information on markets in the cases.
But your assumptions should be they should be quite fair, and they should also be quite reasonable. Yes. Sometimes, if you make too many assumptions, sometimes you actually take out all of the juice in a case, yes? And then it's oversimplified, and then it's not interesting.
You were talking about information on markets. I have been wondering about a few ideas I've had, and a lot of my barriers have been, what are the markets? How does one find information on that?
When you come to the 4 key external factors, one of the key external factors is actually a market analysis. So if you look into that stuff and you read the text in the book and you actually try that out, you will find a lot of info about the market, and you actually have the 5 key areas you have to look into. So that's also part of the curriculum. So if you haven't read it yet, you can actually look forward to that, yes?
Yeah. Then I think one final remark is that regarding this robustness check that we had, we often experience that could be a little difficult. What do we actually mean? And I think Matthias said that very well as well, because that when you get too geeky and you miss the big picture, that is actually when you have missed to do the robustness check. So balance between being too geeky within your analysis and missing out on the big picture. So keep both in mind. That is actually about doing the robustness check.
Thank you. Sarah, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Søren. Now we are closing the show. You will be taking your little break and then going over and getting into your groups and working on your case analysis. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for this first show. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we welcome your feedback. As I mentioned in the beginning, we will see you next week at 10 o'clock here in the Technical University of Denmark's wonderful library.